All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you for listening, for watching, however you consume the show. Appreciate you very, very much. Also, shout out to our sponsor, Sunny Reds, 1841 Aber Road, just down the way from Highmark Stadium. This is our Tuesday night video Wednesday podcast, which means we're going to be about 36 or so hours out from the actual NFL draft when most of you listen to this. This is going to be the final of a series of 4 Bills 7-round mock drafts and kind of going old school for this one, man. I had cover 1 the first 2 times. Then I had Bruce Nolan last week. Aaron Quinn, old friend of mine, old recurring guest on this show. Probably, even though you have not been on much over the last year and a half or so, you're probably still up there in the top 2 or 3 of people that have been on
maybe top 2 or 3, but I've definitely gotten overtaken by Joe and Matt, and Warren there the last year or so. But and honestly, don't tell Bruce this, but I consider him one of the cover 1 guys. Even though he's not, we would try to get him, but he's just like us. He's like a second cousin.
What's going on, man? It has been a while since I've had you on the podcast. How are things going over at Cover 1? You and Greg, of course, you do your show. I've always been a big fan of that, man. Just how things been. I know you're a golf guy. It's been raining. Sucks for you. At least today, you had to push us up because of rain. You had a tee time, but
that's honestly one of the reasons I haven't been on as much as we would do the daytime during some of the busier times of the year. But in the fall now, I try to get out and golf as much as I can. Town courses open Wednesday here in Tonawanda, but they were flooded, and I had a tee time at Audubon, and it was just up here in Amherst, Tonawanda. We got total flooding, so it worked out here for us. But I've gotten plenty of golf in. I'm not worried about it. And as far as the show goes, man, things have been great. Cover 1 YouTube passed 100,000 subscribers here in the last month, which is pretty cool. We've been working really hard to get more people over there, and that's a total effort. That's not a Greg and me effort. That's the film room. That's the air raid hour guys. That's Joe DeRosa, all the guys over at Cover 1 just grinding pretty hard. And draft season's tough, man. You know, it's probably too long. Greg and I dip into it pretty late, and we were just talking the other day of like, man, I'm ready to see who the Bills pick. Like, I'm over analyzing all these things. I just want to know who it is so we can analyze the guys that are going to actually be on the team here. And so it's close though. We're here. It's draft week, and we only have a couple more days here to find out.
I think when you get to this point of the process, you probably have thought of almost every scenario that could possibly happen.
And we'll still all be wrong.
I was going to say, it feels like there's very few things that can surprise you that would make you feel like you're wrong. But it seems like every year, somewhere, if it's not the first pick, it's the second pick, it'll be a guy where you did 50 mocks or you evaluated dozens of guys, and the guy that you glossed over, he ends up being the pick. It seems to come without fail. We'll jump into the mock draft in a few seconds. I want to go back to golf, though, real quick, because, again, I know you've been a fan of golf now for a long time, obviously, but I'd say the last year and a half or so, since you used to be on the show a lot more, you have physically gotten into playing golf a lot more. Like I said, you've always been a fan, but you've been playing a lot. Like, you're right up there now. You and Nate, probably the 2 sports media guys in Buffalo that probably play the most golf. I know you have a big passion for playing the sport.
I bet there's more that just don't talk about it. I know Jeremy plays a lot. I think Sneaky Joe gets out quite a bit. Bulldog, I know I've been trying to link up with him over at Delaware, but our schedules are just a little enough different that it's hard. But yeah, no, I'm enjoying it, man. I will say, what makes it so that I can play a lot, town of Tonawanda has very accessible golf. Like, it's golf is not super accessible for everybody. It gets very expensive, but the town has reasonable rates and really good courses. Like, people want to knock the municipal courses and stuff, but I'm not super good, Pat. Like, I don't need country club golf courses to make the game harder. Sheridan is a really hard course that is well taken care of. And then Brighton is a little easier. You can't get in a lot of trouble. And also, I think underrated in how well they take care of that place. I got my town pass for like $550 or something, and that's unlimited golf for the year. Like I'm gonna get my money's worth here before we hit June. And so they just make it really accessible to people, and it's a privilege for me to be here in the town where it is accessible, because some of those rounds when I go out with my buddies, man, it's like $60 to $80 a round, and that's where golf gets a little out of reach for a lot of people. But even like, I know you guys play, you and your son play some of the county courses. Like Kaz is a really good one. I really like Grover Cleveland. Like, I don't think people in Western New York realize how accessible the game of golf can be if you utilize the municipal and county courses.
Yeah, Shane, my son Shane is really starting to get into it. In fact, he's joining Kaz this year, so he can just go play. He'll go right from work and go shoot 9, a couple times a week and get out as much as he can. It's just a great sport to play. And whether you're 22 years old and a good athlete like him, whether you're I guess I could call you middle age a little bit.
I'm 41.
Aaron, or you're getting up to the point where I am, man, where it's getting hard to really do anything else. Golf's just something that you can always play and enjoy. You're never too young, you're never too old to be able to play the game, as long as you can walk, man. Yeah, let me ask you this. What's your level right now compared to, say, recent years of draft prep? Like, are you pretty much on par with where you've been over the last few years? Have you got into a little bit more, a little bit less? Like, where are you at prep wise? How you're feeling about right now?
This year, for me, was I felt like it was a little bit easier because I feel like I have a good sense. Usually Brandon Beane doesn't go into a draft with such glaring holes, right? With cornerback 2, interior defensive line really just standing out for what they need in terms of even starting caliber players. And so that's a rare thing for Brandon Beane to go in. With the floor not being as high as we would like it. Even, getting a Dane Jackson, I probably like him more than most people do, but I don't want that to be your cornerback 2 going into the season. Maybe DaQuan Jones can recapture some of his abilities from, 2 years ago. I don't feel great with that plan. And so I see 2 pretty glaring holes. So I really hyper focused on those, and that was a little easier than in years past. I know there was the wide receiver train, and they did end up going wide receiver. And I know the year Kyrie Elam cornerback was a bit like everybody knew that, but there was a lot of other positions to look at, and you had a little bit more work to do. I'm not saying the Bills don't have other positions to key in on, or I didn't look at other positions, but I spent so much time, especially with the depth of that interior defensive line class. And really, I like the depth of the corner class too. Most of my time was spent on those prospects. So I feel like I got maybe a better understanding of the specific groups that I think the Bills are going to be targeting, because it was a narrower focus, and I could spend more time in those groups comparing. But I do think, and this happens to me a little bit every year, I try not to my over analyzing and then projecting like, well, all of these guys are going to come in and be really good players. Cause right now I'm having a hard time when I'm doing these mocks of like, maybe waiting a little too long on some positions, because I'm like, oh, there's so many interior defensive linemen that maybe I don't have to go after it in round 1. I can go on a corner, or maybe if there's an edge sitting there in round 2, I can still kick that can down the road. And so I got to be careful to remember that some of these round 4, 5 prospects are round 4 or 5 prospects, and they're not going to just come in and light the world on fire just because I'm watching and seeing some of the highlights and the high end of their college tape. Doesn't mean that's going to transition where the Bills need, which is immediate impact.
There's so many guys on this team, dude, that are late, day 3 picks like Milano and Johnson, and to a lesser extent, guys like Damar Hamlin. Obviously, Christian Bedford, a 6th round pick that you like to really get hyper focused on those late round gems, because you're trying to think of who could be the next Khalil Shakir, who could be the next.
But those guys take time, right? Shakir took some time to find his way into the team. Yeah. Taron Johnson even took a little while to become who he was. Milano, they started Humber over Milano, right? And I know people will be like, well, McDermott doesn't play rookies, right? That'll be the thing. But some of it is whether or not they're ready. And I will say those picks are cool when we look at those picks, but percentage wise, the Bills also have more picks in those sections of the draft. So you do hit on those guys, but it's more of a numbers game. It's because they've had more opportunities at hitting in those rounds.
One of the, I would say, annual things now that happens is we spend so much time thinking about players, mocking them, projecting them, talking about them. And then days before the draft, we start hearing about injuries, that could knock a guy way down the board, maybe even in some cases take a guy off a board. And I kind of feel like this year, just over the last couple of days, actually, has kind of been no exception with some of these more prominent names. I'm sure a lot of them that you've discussed. Derek Harmon, Alfred Collins, a pair of defensive tackles, they could slide because of some medical concerns. The corner from Michigan, Will Johnson, apparently has a knee issue. Albert Bear was reporting he has a knee issue that's been flagged by some teams, and it could impact his longevity for his career. We're hearing about that. We knew about Ravel Jr., the corner, coming off a torn ACL. Albert Bear said the projection for him right now is he should be back by around the start of training camp, which let me ask you quickly here, because corner is just such an important position
Yep.
and one that I think we know the Bills are going to address it. When, we'll find out, but we know they're going to. Signing Tre White last week, does that change how you approach this draft whatsoever in terms of corner? Obviously, you're still going to take a corner. I'm not, signing Tre White's going to not make you say, oh, we don't need a corner. We got Tre White. But maybe having Tre White and Dane Jackson, that maybe a guy like Ravel, or maybe a guy that's not necessarily going to be a day one starter, it might give the Bills, it might make them take a guy like Ravel, like even if he's not ready to go right away, you got a guy like Trey, or if not him, Dane Jackson, to kind of hold it down. Did deciding a Trey affect anything with you on how you might approach players?
It might give me a slight more confidence. That was one of my worries that we've been talking about, Greg and I, is a guy like a Ravel, or say Will Johnson's knee. Although I would take him in a heartbeat.
Mhm.
Is that I am nervous the idea of a potential red shirt, and I know that Ravel, they've been talking that he will be ready for training camp. I don't know the extent of his injury. I'm guessing some of that is coming from his agent and doctor, who are probably going to overestimate his availability. I'm always going to assume that a player coming off a devastating injury like that's going to be about a year and a half to 2 full years before they're back to full where they were. Like maybe he can play, maybe he is ready to go at training camp and can play this season, but I don't think he's going to be the player that we saw healthy, right? And maybe he exceeds those expectations. That would be great, but that's not a plan to me. And so I was a little nervous of this idea of the possibility of a red shirt corner with that high of an asset. Maybe Tre White gives me a little more confidence to say, hey, if that is truly best player on the board and Harmon's gone and all these other guys that I think could plug in and start right away, if those guys are off the board and Ravel's just sitting there and just baiting you into taking him, maybe you do have a little bit more confidence that, hey, if we get him in here and he isn't 100% and we're not confident in him starting week one, we feel okay that we're good enough. That floor is raised enough to where we can allow him to be the player that we project he's going to be. So I think it boosts the confidence a little, not a ton. I think there was some pretty hot takes on Tre White signing both ways a little bit. And
Yeah.
most of the time, like most things, Pat, I'm kind of in the middle on it, right? Like, I don't think he was terrible. I think he had a tough run in LA. I don't know that that was a great fit for him. And then I think he played pretty well, actually, with the Ravens and some spot duty. And I think actually him knowing this system and knowing McDermott and the way he was playing and some of that off coverage stuff, I think actually will play pretty well for him if he is healthy. And so I think his ability raises the floor over Dane Jackson. I think he could be a good cornerback too. He's not coming in being asked to be Tre White of the Buffalo Bills, right? He's coming in asked to kind of raise that floor of corner too, which I think that he could do. But I'm always going to want more at that position.
Where are you right now with Keon Coleman going in the year two? Because I feel like this is important. The Bills may or may not address receiver at all. It could be early, it could be mid round. I feel like how you feel about Keon Coleman going into his second year may impact where you would want a receiver in the stretch. Or maybe I'm wrong, but where are you at right now with Keon going into year two?
Yeah. I wasn't super high on Keon Coleman going into year one. I think I was not as high as maybe the consensus. I honestly felt like this was one of those instances where Bills Mafia talked themselves into something. Not a lot of people were high on Keon Coleman going into that draft, right? It was the wide receiver training. You heard all the names and then they trade back. They end up getting Coleman. I think people kind of talked themselves into it. Then he was funny. He did the jacket stuff and cookies and all that. And that's just bait for a lot of people, and he is likable. I get that. And then he had some moments, and I think showed who he is, which is a guy that doesn't get great separation but can win physically. He had some of those moments. I agree with Brandon Beane. There's a little concern that the injury really, he didn't get over the injury and come back the same way that he was playing, which there might be some concern there, but that's the maturation of these guys. I expect that he is going to mature. Brandon Beane doesn't call people out publicly all that much, and pretty called him out there. And so hoping that he received that message. But my expectation really hasn't changed. I think he still is going to be who he is, which is a guy that can be maybe wide receiver 2 production, low end wide receiver 2 production. But in terms of the draft, I know a lot of people are harping on like they need a true whatever position. I don't know. I'm not really into positions at receiver. Like I don't need boundary. Everybody wants to slot people into like Khalil Shakir is only a slot. I think he can do more, and I hope that Brady allows him to do a little bit more this year. A healthy Curtis Samuel, which may never be the case. We're going to never see a healthy Curtis Samuel, but if he's healthy, I think that changes that wide receiver room quite a bit. And hopefully the growth of a Dalton Kincaid, who has not met expectations this year, changes a lot of things. I'm also super high on Palmer and what his ability, even if he's not necessarily productive in the stat line, his ability to separate and get deep, I think, is going to open up some things in the middle and in the seam for Kincaid, for Shakir, for some of these other guys. So I like the room as it is. I'll add, especially if they're keeping a lot of these picks. I don't expect the Bills to keep all the picks they have, but if they are flush with picks in the middle, there's some receivers that I really like that will fit into this room pretty well. But Greg and I talk about it a lot. I think whoever it is that you're bringing in this draft, unless they do something shocking and go really early in this, you're talking about wide receiver 5, right? Yeah. And a guy that's probably not going to get a lot of action this year.
Yeah, agreed 100%. Last thing that we're going to jump into this draft here. This is not related to our draft. This is the actual draft, and this is obviously a guess. I don't even think Brandon Beane and the Bills know what they're going to do right now as we're recording this. What does your gut tell you in terms of, do you think something big is going to be brewing? Whether that might be a move up, and by move up, I mean more than just like 2 spots. I'm talking like maybe 5 spots or more. So some kind of move up, a trade for a player. There's certainly no lack of veteran names rumored to potentially be there available in trade. We're hearing, wide receivers. I'm hearing about Pickens this week, Jameson Williams from the Lions. TJ Watt seems to be a name, still thrown out there. Trey Hendrickson, who the hell knows how that plays out. The Bengals, there's just a lot of players right now. So between maybe a trade for a player or a move up, do you feel like something big is brewing for the Bills, or are you kind of of the mindset that you think it's going to be just hit the draft and add as much talent to this roster as you can without doing anything, exceptionally crazy, so to speak?
Yeah, I feel like these player rumors start to pop up this week before the draft every year, and it's never as exciting as the rumors going into the draft are. I don't have the data about player for pick trades, but I don't think there's a ton of it on draft night. So I don't necessarily expect that, but I'll never be shocked with Brandon Beane trying to add a guy. If he has a chance to add a Jameson Williams, I could see him drooling over those types of opportunities, or, a TJ Watt, whatever it is. But the one that I see that I think that he's going to have a tough time, and he's talked about it in the draft before, of like, holding himself back from doing, is once you get around that Vikings pick, if one of these corners does slip, or I know a lot of drafts had Harmon getting that far down, or Kenneth Grant. If one of those guys is kind of sitting there hanging out at whatever it is, 24 or whatever, I think that he's going to start getting a little itchy to do something there. Where I would prefer it is getting back, moving some of those round 5 later picks. I don't love that bunch here when we do the mock drafts. It feels like I'm just like, okay, I got to take another thing. Bundling some of that up to get back into the top 100 is me. We've done enough of these. I want to get as many top 100 prospects as I can in every draft. So I'd be happy to walk away with 5 players, 4 players, if we could get more picks within that top 100 and get some better lottery options.
I want to because I've been using sticktothemodel.com. I'm become a big fan of this simulator for mock drafts. And I did do, I really don't do mock drafts. I've been doing draft trade exercises. like you just talked about using all those picks. I'll give you two examples specifically. If you wanted to take the Bills got 2 fours, 109, 132. Let's say you wanted to take those picks and package them. How far could you get up? According to the model, that could get you up to 90, where the Rams are at. So, say if there's a guy that you really liked in round 3 at 90 and you were willing to give up both your fours, you'd be able to do that. The other one, too, pick 134 in the 4th round is the Philadelphia Eagles. If you wanted to take 169 and 173, two of your 3 5th rounds, and package those together, that could get you up to round 134 late in the 4th. Just things that I want us to explore when we get to that in this mock. So we're going to get this started. By the way, in honor of you being on the show, I don't know if you've even noticed this. No one, if you're watching on the video, check this out. See that top right corner there? I started a album collection. I used to have a Buffalo up there. Lionel Richie's in the house right now, man. I'm going to start putting some 80s and 90s R&B albums. I got a bunch of them. I'm going to start getting those up on the video side, man. Looks kind of
I gotta say, I gotta call out our friend Matt Beauvais. I was watching one of they do a bunch of different pods and shows now through his channel, and I popped into one on X or Twitter a couple weeks ago. He didn't know who Babyface was.
What?
So one of the ladies was trying to make a comment that like Babyface was more influential on music than Mary J. Blige. And he was like, well, Mary's more popular, which I agree with him that Mary is more popular to like the common person. But he was like, I have no idea anything about Babyface. So I started like listening. I was offended, obviously. And
I'm hearing this
in the chat. And then I even said, I go, he's like the co-founder of LaFace Records. And he's like, I've never heard of that. What's LaFace Records? And I was like, God, like
I'll say this conversation. I know people want to get into this mock draft. They don't want to hear an old dialogue about Babyface, but I will say this. Well, another conversation for another time. That dude could easily be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame between the amount of that he has, the music he's produced, the songs that he's written for other artists.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, man.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. Get him. Go tell him.
I am going to get him. All right. So we're going to get this mock draft started. Let's say, am I safe to go through, say, the first 20 picks?
I would say at least, yeah.
All right. So we'll go through the first 20. I'll stop this at 20. And then we'll see. Now, I got to remember, because we do this enough, a lot of people are watching, but there's also a lot of people listening. So I'm going to do my best to also, explain on the audio side what the hell is going on too. Well, yeah, we're going to get this off because I don't think there's any realistic chance that the Bills are going anywhere higher than 20, no matter what. And let's see. All right, so we'll go one more. All right, so Denver just picked. All right, so top 20 picks. Again, I'm not going to read every one of these. It would take forever. I'm just looking through if there's any names that would be of interest. The Miami Dolphins at 13 took Will Johnson. Dallas at 12 took Mikael Williams, the edge rusher. There's nobody really else that. Well, a couple guys that could potentially, if they slide a little bit, if you're an edge guy, if they slide a little bit, maybe you're thinking about James Pierce, but he goes 19 to Baltimore. And then Mike Green just went 20 to the Denver Broncos. Now, what I love about this simulator as opposed to PFF or so is whenever you want, you can always take a look at the board. You know what I mean? The players and the positions. So we're at pick 20 right now. Kenneth Grant, Harmon are still there. Nolan, when it comes to interior guys, edge guys, Donovan Izaraku is there. Nick Scorton is there as well. And then the corners, Ravel's there, Harrison's there, Amos is there, Thomas is there. I'll point out too, Aaron, so this is mock draft 4, the final one with you here. The first 3, David Tilton in mock draft 1 and Anthony Prohaska in mock draft 2, we both ended up with Trey Amos. And then last week with Bruce, we ended up trading down with the Saints, and he ended up taking Azari Thomas. So it's been a corner.
I do like Azari Thomas a lot.
Yeah, so we'll see how that plays out. But right now, you're feeling pretty good, like with where you are, defensive tackles and corners that are still there. I kind of feel like this draft is playing out the way you would like so far, right?
Yeah, I would say run it to Minnesota, see where things are at.
All right, so we'll go to stop at Minnesota.
Yeah.
All right,
see what these next few are.
We'll go 21, 22, 23. Oh, shit. It went a little bit too fast. But anyway, I don't think it's affected us too much.
Nope. Yeah.
So, first linebacker, Campbell goes off the board, 21 to Pittsburgh. Malachi Starks is the pick for Minnesota at 24. Back-to-back safeties at 23 and 24. All right, so the Houston Texans now are on the clock, and you still got Harmon, you still got Grant, and you still got pretty much the corners that you like. How you feeling right now? What do you think is the play?
At this point I would run it. I think there's enough. There's a guy going to be here at 30 that I don't need to move any of those other assets. It's going to get too expensive for me, and it's just not worth it to me.
Agreed. Okay, so we'll try to go one at a time here. So 20, Kenneth Grant goes to Houston at
That's
25,
right.
so he's gone. The Rams are up. Derek Harmon. So the DTs go 2 in a row. Grant and Harmon to Houston and the Rams respectively. So we got 3 more picks for the Bills are on the clock. Tampa takes Azaraku. 28, Detroit takes Walter Nolan. Washington's on the clock. They take a running back Hampton. All right, so the Bills are on the clock here. We're at pick 30. Let's look. Defensive line, Tyleik Williams is there for you. Edge rushers, Scorden. Am I saying it right? Nick Scorden. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's there.
I butcher everybody's names, so
I do. It's one of my worst traits about being a podcaster. I'm terrible with names. Ravel Jr.'s there. Maxwell Harrison is there. Trey Amos is there. Azari Thomas is there. All these guys are there at 30. Just overall.
What are the trades that we've been offered?
All right, so we've been offered 4. Jacksonville wants us to move down to 36, and they're offering a future second. So we'd move down 6, and we'd pick up a 2026 second rounder.
What's New Orleans offering?
Yeah, I think, oh wow, man, the Chargers want us to go all the way down to 55. I think that's just
no,
too
I don't
much.
want to do that.
But
moving 40, to 40 plus a future.
40 and a 40 and a future second for pick 30. That's what they've offered.
So not as good as Jacksonville.
Yeah, Jackson. What? Hold on. Jets 42. What's up with all these futures? They're trying to get us for a future right now. Jacksonville, yeah, they want us to move to 36 and give us a future second. So, I mean,
in reality, like if I'm Brandon Beane, that's definitely an alluring thing. But because this is a mock and I just am only focused on this year, like the future pick does nothing for me. So that's a tough one.
Agreed. I agree. It's tough because you want to have a fun mock draft, but at the same token, if you're being realistic, like you kind of want to think about how Brandon Beane would think in the stock a second, but you are moving back 6. And if there's, you like 2 or 3 corners and 1 defensive tackle, they could all be gone at 36 too. And then you could be kind of left scrambling. So yeah, that'd be tough. I think it would be tough to move down to 36.
Yeah, this one's going to be a tough one for me. I am kind of torn here between, I actually like all these corners. I like Ravel, Harrison, Amos, and Thomas. Amos feels, I think a lot of people have made this comment, Tre Whitey, which I think the Bills will like. Thomas feels the most Billsy to me. Like he's just kind of a lockdown, shutdown guy. I don't think he's getting enough hype in this class. And he belongs in that conversation, in my opinion. And when I've taken him here and people are like, what are you doing? He sucks. And I don't see that. Harrison is actually fun, but he doesn't seem like a Bills fit to me. And Ravel Jr. has the concerns of a knee issue for me, but honestly, we talked about it earlier. Maybe Trey White gives me just enough insurance that I'm okay doing that. And so normally I go Amos here. I love him as a Bills fit. He's one of my favorites. He's a guy that I love taking, but I don't know, maybe I talked myself into Ravel Jr. here and going with maybe potentially a higher end athlete, higher end prospect. And just kind of taking the flyer that he fell because of the knee injury and wouldn't really even be here otherwise. And so I think I might go Ravel Jr. here.
All right, we're going to make that pick. Before we do, though, I do want to ask you about one player who is on this board. Actually, I could ask you 2. They're both receivers. A kid from Ohio State and Luther Burden at the 3rd. I can't remember who it was, but somebody of note mocked him to the Bills like a week or 2 ago. I can't remember who it was. It was one of the national guys. Do you kind of feel like if you're not going to get Golden, and even he could be questionable, but like considering what you have on this roster, what you need, you feel like first round is just too rich for these receivers, that these really don't feel like first round guys, not enough to make you not take a corner or an edge or a defensive tackle?
I won't lie. I haven't done a lot of work on the top end of the receiver class just because maybe Brandon Beane will do it. I think that's a little bit of a dangerous game he'd be playing with already historic offense. I know you always want to make it better and make it easier on Josh Allen, and that scoring points matters. This defense has real holes, and I won't even be mad if they go all defense throughout this draft class and continue to add to the offense in the future. I think you have enough pieces, and you got to bank on continued development of some of the pieces that you already spent lots of capital on, in Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid, and the amount of money that you paid to Knox, and what you've got with James Cook, assuming he doesn't get traded. And so I don't know, it feels like you'd be overtaking a little bit there with the luxury item of getting a receiver. I've heard good things about those guys. I'm sure they would come in and be super productive. But you got to address these holes on the defensive side.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. All right, so Shavon Ravel Jr. is going to be the pick for the Bills at 30. I intentionally stopped this at 32 because, just for informational purposes, if you were thinking big move and you were willing to package 56 and 62, that should get you up to right about here. End of the first round, very beginning of the second round. But you look at the board, Aaron, and would there be any player, like if defensive tackle and corner are your two biggest needs, glaring needs, like you said, and we took the corner, Tyleik Williams is there at 32, but to give up 2 seconds, does that feel too rich for your blood when you look at other defensive tackles that potentially could be available at some point in the draft?
I like Tyleik a lot. And I think that's exactly the type the Bills need. That's too rich for him, in my opinion. I think he's solidly in round 2. I don't think he's worth getting up here. The only time I would make this trade, Pat, is if, say, we ended up with a Harmon, right? Harmon slides to the Bills, and you have this one of these corners that you're really targeting on the board, and I can address that and not hope that it makes it there to us. Because when I'm doing these mocks, a lot of those corners start to take off here in this early second round. When I do go defensive tackle early, and then I miss out on the 4 guys that I really would like. And then you're really dealing with some project guys, which is fine. I think it's also okay. We've seen project guys turn into great players. Especially if you're going to take a project at any position for the Buffalo Bills, defensive back's probably one that you could bank on. They're going to turn out to something, a quality player, but I'd rather be in that high end. So for me, that trade would be, we got interior defensive line, and now I'm looking at a Ravel Jr. or, Trey Amos is still sitting there early in the second. I want to get him before Cincinnati does, something like that.
What you just said right there is why I love mock drafts. It's an exercise, and it's not so much about the predictive nature of it. It's about going through scenarios. And that really resonated with what you just said with me. Defensive tackle at the top may be thinner than corner, late first, early second. And if you were to get a Harmon or a Grant and they fell to you, or whatever you did to go get one of those guys, and then you're thinking, 2-2s, and you can move up and you could go get Amos or Ravel Jr. or something like that. That feels a lot more feasible. And again, this is what I love about these drafts, is that you kind of get a feeling of what needs to be done to go get these players. Now, we say that, and Ravel might end up a 3rd round pick. Who knows? Or he might end up pick 18. We don't know, but just the theories of it all, and that's the fun part of doing these. All right, so we're gonna let this ride for a little bit. Would be all right. So when you get to like 49 here, Cincinnati, and one thing I really like about this this model here, it'll kind of give you the values. Like if you wanted to trade, like if you wanted to move up from 56 to 49, like what would it require? You know what I mean? Like say 56, which would leave you, what is that here? I think I'm going blind, buddy. But like if you were going to do something like that, you know what? Like this would be like if you wanted to move up from 56 to 49 and you were willing to give up 132, there's a chance that it would get accepted, but not likely. Do you know what I mean? But at this point, let's take a look at the board before we do anything stupid. So defensive tackles, obviously, we still want to take a good look at. Darius Alexander is there. Alfred Collins is there. Joshua Farmer is there. Those are 3 guys that I think. Well,
I do love Norman Lott, even though Norman Lott doesn't necessarily fill the need that the Bills have. I think you could go. I honestly love the double dip interior defensive. I don't think they can get enough support in that interior defensive line right now. So like a scenario I could do would be like a Norman Law and then take a CJ West later or take a Pegas later, something like that, where you still get the big body, and you get a pretty disruptive interior rusher type player as well. So I like the names on the board. I love Darius Alexander. I think, the way he dominated in the MAC, it probably hurt him a little bit playing in the MAC. Otherwise, he should probably be up higher on a lot of these boards. And so I'm kind of happy. How many picks do we have left? We're at 49. We have 7 picks.
Yeah, we still got to go. Let's see. So you got Cincy, Seattle, Denver, Seattle, Tampa, Green Bay, and the Chargers. So what's that? 7 picks still before the Bills are on the
Yeah.
clock. So those are your DTs. I didn't ask you today about safeties. What's your thought on safety? Safeties seem to be a popular day 2 pick, and the guy that I really like a lot, Xavier Watts, is there right now. But do you feel like the Bills like the combination of Rapp and Bishop enough that you're like, hey man, I don't know that we really need to get a guy as high as round 2? Another thought, Anthony, your colleague at Cover One was talking about. He says, well, I really like Taylor Rapp and I really like Cole Bishop, but I really don't like Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop, playing together. Is getting a more of a traditional kind of like free safety something that is on your radar?
I don't agree with Anthony's take on not liking them together. I think in order to play the Bills defense, you have to do both things. I don't think there is a traditional role. They play a split safety look. You're going to have to be able to do both things, no matter who it is. I think the Bills like Taylor Rapp a lot. They've come out and said it at least. I'm going to take Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott at face value for how much they like him. Obviously, him staying on the field's a little bit of a concern, maybe somewhat of an overblown concern, but a little bit of one. When he's healthy, he's awesome. He was one of the top havoc safeties in the NFL. And honestly, Damar Hamlin gets a lot of hate. He played really well last year, in terms of being a bottom tier starter, which isn't a bad thing. You watch safety play league wide. I had to defend Damar Hamlin constantly. He did have a couple run fit errors, but those stood out. He had way more good plays than he had bad plays. Just nobody talks about the good plays. Cole Bishop got better as the year went on. I was super high on him during the draft process last year as a really good Bills fit. I'm expecting a big leap going forward, and I'm not ready to give up on that development. If safety just falls into your lap and it just makes a ton of sense, I'm willing to take a guy here earlier. But I don't need it. Again, that to me feels like a luxury that you could do if you want to, but I'm still in addressing needs mode here where the need will outweigh the want, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. And look, I like Forrest too. The signing from
Yeah,
Washington.
Forrest could be an interesting one too. Yeah, I think the room is interesting to me, and I do believe that the Bills can get away with a little less talent per se at that position, especially if here's the thing: if you start getting to the quarterback a little bit more and playing complementary football on defense, all the safeties are gonna look a lot better.
Yeah. Wide receivers, Trey Harris, Jalen Noel, Jalen Royals, 3 of the more prominent receivers available. But anyway, so we're at 40. Again, we're at 49. And that's what's out there. What do you want to do?
I'd say we go maybe 3 or 4 picks here and see what is within striking distance.
All right, let's get to Seattle. Let's go through 3 picks. All right, so the board went our way. The last 3 picks. Carson Schweizens are a linebacker from UCLA, which, by the way, I've heard the Bills. I can't remember where I heard it. This just over the last few days. They're a linebacker in the was Schefter really taking a linebacker in the first round? That feels weird, man. But hey, you never know. Anyway, all right. So now it kind of fell our way. So we're at 52. Seattle is on the clock, and if let's see. So what's the value there? I'm having a hard time seeing because I'm at a bad angle. Well, so 129, and if we were gave up 132, that's actually the value. So we gave up 56 and 132 for 52 to move up 4 spots. We'd be giving up our late 4th. That could happen right now. Is go back to defensive tackle. I would assume that defensive tackle would be, if you were going to move up, I would assume it would be for an edge guy. You said you like Darius Alexander a lot. He's there.
He is there, and he's probably the best overall player on the board. What's the overall right now? not just on the D line.
JTT, the edge
Okay, so he's
rusher
right
from Ohio.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
The problem is though, Pat, like I like Darius Alexander a lot, but I would be happy to take Alfred Collins. I'd be happy to take Xavier Watt right here, right? I said Norman Lott is a guy that I like. And so I'd have a tough time trading this one. Again, I think my trade spot's going to be coming up here before we get out of this top 100 and making sure that maybe I get another piece, say a Makuba falls or something like that, and then I can go get myself a nice safety piece, something like that.
Okay.
So I think we run it.
All
I
right,
think
so let's go. Well, Seattle takes the edge rusher JTT from Ohio State. Tampa takes, all right, Darius Alexander just went 54 to Green Bay. One more pick to Chargers, and then the Bills are going to be on the clock. Obviously, we're just going to let this run then.
Yeah.
And all right, so there you go. The Bills are on the clock. Defensive edge, Alfred Collins is there. Norman Lott is there. Joshua Farmer is there. Xavier Watts is there. I think in terms of, I'm not really sure.
And what's our next pick again?
62. But the assistant GM in me thinks you're playing with fire if you don't take a defensive tackle with one of these picks here.
You're playing a little bit with fire here. Go back to the defensive line.
Defensive line, Collins, Norman Lott, Farmer, Deion Walker, who, by the way, I was listening to Joe Marino's Locked On Bills, not high on Deion Walker whatsoever.
I like Farmer a lot.
Pretty much. Yeah.
And I feel like we can wait on Farmer. Go to Edge real quick. This is the problem with Edge is you start to, I do like Josiah Stewart a lot too, and Swinson. Maybe that's the move is we wait, take Farmer, trade up, get Swinson. Safety, go to safety real quick. Sorry.
You're good. Xavier Watts, Kevin Winston Jr., Andrew
All right,
Makoba.
one more. Go to wide receiver just to see where we're at.
Wide receivers, they got Trey Harris, Jalen Noel, and Jalen Rolls. Jack Beck is there as well. Isaiah Bond, which I do not think the Bills, given some off-field stuff, really are going to be interested in him right now.
I think I'm going with Watt.
Here, wow.
Even though I said, yeah, I just, again,
all right, I love it.
I don't know, man. To me, that value, like I like Collins. I just don't know that the value's there for me. This guy's an All-American, a multiple-time All-American, and he might be able to come right in and play right away, or at least give you some options to do some hybrid defensive stuff.
Guys like Eric and Anthony have studied and evaluated dozens of players. I haven't. But what I have done is watch every Notre Dame football game for the last handful of years. Xavier Watts is going to be a beast, man. He's going to be a great player in the NFL. I feel good about this. So we're pulling the trigger, Xavier Watts?
Yeah, do it.
All right.
But now we got to start paying attention because if we don't get interior defensive line here soon, social media is going to kill us. So
I agree, but I agree. And Brandon Beane's associates might kill you too, as well.
Yeah,
defensive
I think we can get to just stay at 62, and then we might have a trade up at beyond 62. Houston already took
just one. Yeah, I think they took Kenneth Grant. So
Baltimore might be your
Judkins. All right, so Baltimore's at 59 right now. It would cost. Do you want to see what the cost would be to move up 3 spots?
Maybe.
Let's see. Baltimore's on the clock here. So 59, 62. What if we gave up a second rounder? What does that say? I can't say.
That feels rich. That's a great offer.
Oh, that was my bad. I gave up a pick for next year. I don't want to do that. I meant to do this. Fair offer they may accept. What about pick 170? So you would be giving up 62 and 170 to go to 59.
And who's on the board again?
In terms of defensive tackles, let's see here. You still got Norman Lott and you still got Joshua Farmer.
I don't think they're going to take Farmer here, and I'm willing to reach for Farmer at 62. I still think the play is play it out and try to trade back up for an edge.
Okay. All right. Well, we're one pick ahead now. Washington's on the clock at 61. Princely, the pass rusher, went to Mississippi. We'll let Washington go. They took Norman Lott.
That's
They took
fine.
Norman Lott. All right. So now that you're
I-
high, you're good enough with Joshua Farmer.
I'm good with Farmer here.
Okay. Now, just so we know, our next pick is scheduled to be 109. But I say when we get to 90, we start seeing if we can move up.
Here, look at
So
before we get out of here. Well, no, go ahead, take Farmer, and then
is
I
it
want to just keep
after?
an eye on that edge market here as we get into the next
All
round.
right. All right. So right now the edge market is Jordan Birch, Josiah
Yeah.
Stewart, Swinson. You mentioned him. Jared Ivey is still out there. Kyle Kennard is still out there.
Yeah, the kid from UCLA too, right there.
Yep,
I
yep,
actually like Savion Jones too. So yeah, there's some options. I think we might want to pause in those 70s area here, maybe early in this round, and see
sure.
where those edges are at.
Our first, so Javon Ravel Jr. is our first pick. Xavier Watson. We've really tried to fortify the secondary, and I absolutely am in love with trying to work on the secondary. And then we took a defensive tackle, Joshua Farmer, at the end of round 2. So, all right, so we'll let this. Well, let me get back to the draft here. So right now on the board, it's at 63. So we're gonna let this play for a bit. All right, so far so good. If you're, if you're tracking edge guys, no edge is just one in the next 5 picks. 2 receivers, they go back to back. Trey Harris,
That's right.
66 to Kansas City, and Jalen Noel goes 67 to the Browns. Darian Porter, a potential round 2 corner for the Bills if
Sure.
things don't fall their way. He goes to the New York Giants at 65. Jalen Royals goes 70 to the Jaguars. Jalen Milroe, he's at pick 71 to the Saints. I feel like he's going to go before that. So let's get to say Dallas at 76. Then let's evaluate. All right, so only Jordan Birch is the only edge guy who's went during this stretch. New England's actually on the clock now at 77. They're looking like they need an edge. Let's see what the price of poker would be if you wanted to move up right now. Okay, let's just see what the price of poker would even be. So if we were to give up 77, 109, and 132 and not get it done. So you're probably this would be too early unless you start giving up picks, 2026 picks. Or you'd have to give up like 2 4s and a 5, and even that's probably not likely. So realistically feeling here, Aaron, it feels like 77 is a little too early to be able to give up unless you were willing to you start giving up 2026 picks, which I kind of don't want to do that. So we'll just have to see if we get lucky for a little bit. Like I said, 90 with the Rams. 90 with the Rams is definitely where you should be able to give up your 2 4s and get somebody. Josiah Stewart goes 77 to New England. Shamar Turner goes Pittsburgh 83. Swinson's gone now. He goes 86 to the Chargers. Damn. Jared Ivey goes 87 in the Packers.
That's
at this
spot.
Point, yeah. At this point, it might be. Yep. It seems like, again, learning about trends, it feels like the mid 80s. If you want to move up to the mid 80s and get an edge guy that you've been waiting on, it probably feels like you need to get to around 85 to be able to
This
do
is also
that.
the thing that in mocks I get caught up doing too much is playing this well, I'm not ready to trade up yet. I'm not ready to trade up yet. And then I end up with all the picks. Right.
Which is
and I don't
right.
Could be. I don't think the Bills are going to end up with this many picks, but it could play this way.
Right. It could. But my point is yeah, you want to move up, and then it always feels like the guy that you want to move up for, you don't, and then he ends up getting taken. You know what I mean? That's just kind of the way it goes here. All right, so Kennard goes. All right, so now the Rams are on the clock at 90, and I targeted them before this mock saying you give up 2 4s, and this is what you can get. You can get up to this. Edge guys, the kid from UCLA is there. If you want to look in a dip at corner, Jacob Parrish is an interesting name. He's there for the Bills. We already took a safety. Chris Paul, it feels a little bit early. I think maybe for a linebacker, but he's there. Wide receivers. I don't know how you feel about this group at this point.
I love Ty Felton. I love Ty Felton. I don't know if we can get him at 109.
Well, he's projected to go 101, so I don't think you get him that high. Tight ends. Don't know how you feel about them. Again, Notre Dame guy. I think Mitchell Evans could be a eventual Dawson Knox, but
Sure.
this is too early. I feel like to go all the way up in the third to get
Running
him.
back. Take a look at
Running backs. I don't have the energy to take a running back in the third round because all
No.
people are going to say is that we're trading James Cook. If you take a guy in the third round, so the overall
There's
here.
nothing that's making me want to trade up, I will say.
Okay.
Yet I think maybe we go run it a couple more picks and see where Ty Felton is at, because that's a dude I love. I would love to add him
So
to this
Ty
team.
Felton, the receiver, is on your radar.
Yeah, and he was at around 101, so maybe run to like
And
mid
we get
90s. Oh, he's
to
gone. He went to 93. Damn it.
Minnesota. Did he go? Yeah, he did. He
Yeah,
went 93 to the New
93.
Orleans Saints. All right, 97 here. So, I mean, at this
And you
point,
lost an edge.
Jacob Parrish, corner, goes to 97, the Minnesota Vikings. We're at pick 100 right now with San Francisco.
I don't think there's going to be any
really
guys that I'm like dying to get. The ones that I probably would have traded up for to win. We should have gone with the Rams like you had suggested. I think you just run it out here.
We're going to run it. At this point, Chris Paul Jr. goes 101 to the Rams. And the Bills are now on the clock here at pick 109.
Let's take a look at
board here.
Edge real quick. I see Savion Jones. That might be in play here. I do like Ingram Dawkins too. I think they've got him too low here, but I still like him too. Go to interior defensive line, because like I said, I'm not opposed to double dipping.
CJ West is out there.
Oh, man, I love CJ West.
Jamari Caldwell.
Yeah, there's a bunch of guys still that I would take flyers on there. What is that wide receiver? Who we got left?
Joey Horton. He's a guy I think the Bills have brought in. Kyle Williams. Another one.
Let's go Kyle Williams.
I like that. I actually like that pick. Kyle Williams, wide receiver from Washington State.
I think he gives you
is the pick.
Something that Bills fans
are going to be on the clock. Now
it's like rapid fire, right? We go. Oh no, that's at 169, 170, 173, right? Zay Alexander, that was going to be one of my guys too. A lot of Bills fans don't want to hear it.
So the Bills about to be on the clock. And I was just
Noel Williams is another guy. Those are the double dip options for me.
He went to Tampa Bay at one.
Yeah. People don't want to hear it. He's like a better
all right,
Levi Wallace.
All right, so the Bills are on the clock here at 132. So far, just to recap, we've taken a corner, a safety, a defensive tackle, and a wide receiver. We haven't taken edge. And look, man, it might play out where you don't do anything more than take a later round flyer on a developmental type edge, and you just roll with what you got this year. So I like the Bills are thin at defensive end for this season. You're looking to add for the future. I would say this could be a good spot potentially for a linebacker if you like one, or maybe even a tight end if you like one. I don't know.
Where's that linebacker? Man, I don't know these guys.
Yeah, Kaiser, Simon, these are guys that feels like maybe this is a little bit too early for. Obviously Sean Dolak will be a guy and you get the 5th, 6th round. That's, but
I like Jay Higgins a lot when you get down into the draft. Let's see, what's corner looking like?
Well, corner is yeah, I'm not that familiar with a lot of these names.
I like Kobe Bryant, decent. Decent. I don't love him.
What about tight end? Mitchell Evans is there. Kind of guy. He's got some Dawson Knox traits to him. Gadsden from Syracuse he's a good weapon, but he is purely like a pass catcher. He doesn't really offer much more than catching the ball. You know what I mean? And you're looking at a potential Dawson Knox kind of guy.
People feel like maybe they do bring in another tight end. I think we're forgetting Davidson. And when everybody's like, oh, we got to replace Quentin Morris. I think Davidson
Yeah.
at least has some potential, and the Bills like that potential. I don't know that they're in a rush to replace Morris. But if a
Mhm.
guy falls for you, what's the all show? Are you on all right now?
This is on all right now.
Man, I hate this spot. I really do.
See, I like that though, because this is where you kind of learn. It's like you'd say to yourself, you know what? I don't want to be in this spot come draft day. Tell you one guy I kind of do like in the spot. We went receiver. Otherwise, I would say Deontay Thornton's a guy that I like. And I also like Jamari Caldwell, just a big ass, pure
Yeah.
1T guy. If you were to double dip there, I mean, that's a position that could maybe use some double dipping too. So lots of options.
Honestly, that is what's standing out to me a little bit, and it would be JJ Pegas or Caldwell. I think I'd go with Caldwell. And honestly, in watching the Harmon film,
Yeah.
I don't think Caldwell got enough credit for like Harmon's awesome and he's got a lot of moves and he can do a lot of
Yeah.
stuff, but that space eating doesn't get enough credit.
He had
And
six
all
and a half sacks with Houston in 2023 too, so,
yeah.
he's got a little bit of juice. I like that pick. You wanna do it?
Yeah, let's go Caldwell there.
Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna pick Caldwell, and then for the sake of maybe not having 10 picks and feeling a little more realistic, when we get to 134, I wanna see what could be there if you were to offer 169 and 173 to go up and move to Philly because it was accepted the last time we did this. So we're gonna take Caldwell, gonna resume the draft. And I think I already went too far past it. All right, so we're
Yeah,
at 139. I'm just looking, if there's any guys that went of interest. Not really, since the Bills picked. I mean, the next Bills schedule pick is not till what is it, 169.
169.
Or
But then you go on a run of
and
3 in a row, right?
three out of five. You're gonna have three out of
Yeah.
five. Now, if you were to trade up here, you could give up like 170 and 173, and you should be able to take this next pick from Minnesota.
Yeah, but who's left? Let me see. I mean, this
That's
is
what
where
I'm
you start to get to like who are you doing
right.
it for? Are you just doing it to make a trade and take less guys?
Yes.
Right? Like which
Well, we
I do get because I get into that stack of 169 through 173, and it's like ugh, I'm just taking guys to get through the mock.
if you like running back, Rashad Smith is a guy who could potentially be of interest as well. Like I said, linebackers, they're going to add a linebacker. I can tell you that right now because I'm not sold on their reserves at all. Andreessen, Lafosio, Spector, none of those guys to me are roster locks. I do think they're going to be looking to take a
I'm sure
linebacker.
they will, yeah. Again, I just I haven't done enough work on them.
Right.
I like Buchanan, I like Higgins again, so I feel like I can wait a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, we
The
already
problem is it doesn't feel like there's anybody that you're going through this that you're like, "Ooh, I wouldn't mind trading up for this
I
guy."
know.
Is
Go
there?
into edge again. Not that we don't. You can't roster this many dudes. Go to uh corner.
Yeah,
We could double dip at corner, right?
sure.
Where are we at right now? We're at 138 or
Yep.
140.
Um,
Yeah,
we're
man. I
at
mean,
we're at 139. So we still got 30 picks to go.
nobody here is making me like I gotta get up and get a
Yeah.
guy. Is the only problem.
Hey, look, it's possible the Bills just keep picking players, man, and let them fight it
Yeah,
out.
I think you run this out. Unfortunately, I'd like to trade up just to make this go quicker.
We'll let it
Um,
run out.
but I think we'll go pretty quick through this stretch
Yeah,
here. You're not
we're just gonna let it run out. Mitchell Evans, the tight. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Once we get to these picks, we'll start making picks and getting through them. Mitchell Evans goes 146 to Carolina. I think he's gonna be a pretty good tight end.
that's a bummer. I wanted to
All
do
right,
more
so we're coming
trades
up here
too.
on the Bills pick, and there's no names that we've discussed. Kobe Bryant just went. All right, so we're about to do a lot of Bills picking right now, so no more
Yep.
waiting around. We're gonna have three of the next five picks here. Here's the overall board. I definitely think we should get a linebacker with one of these three picks at some point.
Yeah.
I just don't know which one you like.
I would take Kaiser here. I think he at a very least could be a really
Okay,
good um
I agree.
special
I
teams
agree.
player.
Yep, he's a rosterable guy. 100% agreed. All right, so
I
we're
don't know
about
that
to
he
pick
fits the
again.
Bills too much, but you still need special teams.
Yep. So Jack Kaiser is the first of 3 5th-rounders at 169 from Notre Dame. That's 2 Notre Damers on this team. I'm liking this already. All right,
That's
so we're
right.
going to be picking right now 170 and 173.
Are we on now? Are we up?
Yep, we're up now. Yep,
All right.
double check. Yep.
All right.
This could be fun on day 3 of the draft when the Bills actually do
It's gonna
have
be
3 of
busy if they keep
yeah,
him.
they
Go to
keep 'em,
running
yep.
back real quick.
Okay.
I think Jaden Blue's higher than 205, but we could probably hang and wait.
Explosive guy. Problem with him is he fumbles a lot. He's a fumbler.
Yeah,
I remember
that's
reading
stuff
that
you
about
can work on though.
Yeah, 100%.
And if Cook's on the roster, he's not going to see the field anyway
Right.
this year. That's going to be a guy that you're developing as a project.
Yep.
Go back to corner. Where are we at with corners? I feel like I'm looking at the
Corners.
spots where we could still double dip and get some action.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. We're at a point of corners where I really don't know any of these guys.
Yeah, I mean,
Kobe Bryant was the last one that I really kind of knew well.
the Bills had in longer beam. I didn't love him watching. Go to where's tight end at now? If you did want to take a waiver on a tight end.
Jackson Hawes is a kind of a big boy tight end type.
Yeah. Man, that's slim pickings. Go to all. Just see what we got.
Oops, so I hit the wrong thing there. All right, so go to all.
Yeah.
This be a tough spot to be in. Like I said, if I were to do my own mock draft tomorrow, but
I would go with. I'm gonna go with Ingram Dawkins here.
Where is he?
He's down at 171.
Okay. So it's an edge. Okay, so we're coming right back up again. This is our third. This is so we still got 3 more picks left here. We're at 170. It's 173, and then we're going to be right back at 177 too. So we're going to have 2 of the next 5 again.
This is so frustrating. We should have traded. Scroll down a little here.
Let's say if we could just trade these freaking picks for next year at this point. There's nobody. Yeah.
Let's go with Mello Dotson and just get a double dip at corner.
Where is he? Corner?
He is
Mello Dotson from Kansas. Yep. Got him. Okay. We still got another one coming up here, 177. We still haven't taken a running back, I don't think, have we? No. Might be a good spot to take a developmental running back because you're going to have one more pick after this. So, what running back do you like the best that's worth developing in your mind here? Devin Neal's, Rashard Smith, Jaden Blue.
The guys I like they have rated pretty low here. I like Blue and LaQuint Allen. I think I'd take Blue, man. Speed. You can't teach speed. You can teach him how to hang onto a football.
Sure. Agreed. And again, this is when you get to this point in the draft, you're taking flyers anyway. All right, so we're going to be coming up here in just a second on the Bills' last pick, which is going to be 206. I think the sentiment is, especially if you're doing mock drafts, which this is the last one anyway, is like, yeah, you want to make a trade because it gets tough to make this many picks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the Bills
draft, but
scouts have done more work.
Trades. It was like, oh, then we are. You mean?
Well, I'm saying like,
yeah,
I said earlier in this, I was so hyper focused on the positions in need and getting those early in the draft, and even looking at the interior, deep and stuff, that I didn't do enough work. They're probably going to take some offensive linemen. I didn't do enough work on offensive line to feel confident in these later round guys. I didn't do enough work on some of these other positions. There's only so much time in a day, right? Like I do this a lot. Maybe I should stop golfing so much and do more draft work. But
Willie Lamp is a guy that I've heard some really good things about from. I can't remember. It was a national analyst who talked about how well he played against some top competition at North Carolina. He's an interior guy. Garrett Dillinger is a guy that I think Bruce took in the last and at this spot last week in the draft. Those are probably the two
Sure,
interior.
take Dillinger. I think they're going to take a offensive lineman at some point. Like I said, I love the room they've got. There's just not a lot. I like the development guys they do have, but again, they're always going to take a big body. But I feel pretty good about the draft. 170 to from 1 to 170. I like these guys. I think
You
that
know, it's yeah, me too. Funny because like you get frustrated because you get to this point of the draft and there's not really guys that you love or you wanted to trade or you're like you should trade, you should have did this, should have did that. I think you go back to this draft now, which let's go through this draft now. And for people listening, I'll run through it again here. I wouldn't be mad at all if this ended up being the draft. So Ravel Jr. is our first round pick. The corner, he goes 30. Xavier Watts, Notre Dame safety, goes 56 overall. Joshua Farmer, a defensive tackle, he's our second round pick. Kyle Williams, you get your wide receiver. He's a fourth rounder. Jamari Caldwell, a guy I think is going to be a potential real sleeper in this draft from Oregon. So you double dipped at defensive tackle. Jack Kaiser, we agree. He's a special teams guy primarily, plays some backup linebacker from Notre Dame.
I think he could replace Spectre for you.
Yeah, for sure. Ingram Dawkins, an edge rusher from Georgia, taking a fly. I think you're semi taking a flyer at him and in the 5th round here.
We got graded out well on that.
Yeah. Mello Dotson, corner. We got him in the late 5th. And then with the 6th round, we got a running back, Jaden Blue from Texas, and an interior offensive lineman, Garrett Dillinger.
Our worst two graded picks, but whatever. You're at the end.
Exactly. They're at the end for what it's worth. And again, I'm a big fan of the sticktothemodel.com, but they gave us a B, good value. I don't know. What are you thinking now as you look at this? If this was going to be the Bills haul come Thursday, Friday, Saturday, how are you going to feel about that?
I like, on the top end, I think assuming the injury is what his doctor and agent are putting out there and Ravel Jr. is good to go for training camp, I think you solidify cornerback 2 there. You're going to have some bumps with a rookie getting into the system, but athletically, I think it's what people have wanted out of the cornerback position there. And then you pair him up with Christian Benford, who I think is a top 5 corner in the NFL. That's a huge leap in that room that you're taking. So I like that. And again, you have a Tre White and a steady hand in a Dane Jackson if it doesn't go according to plan right away. So I like that investment. Xavier Watts feels like a luxury pick a little bit because I do think you have starting safeties on the team. It's not the need that some of these other spots are, but I do think he's such a high end player. It was hard to turn away, and I think it could be your future starter. Allows you to move on from Taylor Rapp maybe in the future, and maybe it's Watt and Bishop going forward is your new group there, which I'm willing to make that investment now, especially when you're able to get Joshua Farmer, who I think should be higher on a lot of these boards. I think can come in and play both. I think he play 1 tech. I think he could play 3 tech. I think he can do both things. So you got a guy that can plug in right away. So you at least have 2 potential starters here in the first 3 picks. Kyle Williams, to me, I think is exactly what Bills fans want, a little bit of that speed and separation ability. And again, this wide receiver doesn't have to come in and be wide receiver 2. You're talking about wide receiver 5 who can develop. And I think Kyle Williams probably should have been higher on boards, but people just he's been around so long. This is a guy that I've been hearing about for a while that I think it was almost over analyzed and kind of fell because of that. I don't know if NFL boards will have him down this low. Caldwell is exactly what people want the interior defensive line to have, which is just meat. He could be a 2-down guy, come in and play. The only thing with double dipping here is now you get into that, like they're not going to cut some of the guys that they have at this interior defensive line room. So you're going to get into a bit of a numbers game, but I like the body types. And then you start to get into developmental guys, Ingram Dawkins, Dotson, Blue, like cool. If they stick around, awesome. If they're hanging out on the practice squad, cool. I think you've addressed your needs primarily, and the roster's in pretty good shape here going forward.
I agree. And look, man, first of all, you just created a fun St. John's Fisher because Watts versus Bishop versus Rapp for 2 spots is going to be a lot of fun at camp. I'll tell you that right now. Yeah. I kind of feel like Watts gets that free safety job, and I feel like it's Bishop and in rap, but I don't know that for sure. But anyway, you look at it, you're going to have a fun safety battle. And that doesn't even count Tamar and Forrest either. You know what I mean? So I agree with you. It feels like a luxury pick, but it's one that we're just seeing over and over and over again by a lot of people. It just makes sense. You're adding a skilled playmaker to your secondary. I love that. And I
Keep this
love
in mind too with that safety. It doesn't necessarily year one have to be a Taylor Rapp replacement. It could just be a Cam Lewis replacement and that hybrid guy that they like to have in dime looks or bringing in somebody else extra. And I like Cam Lewis. Fine. He's okay. But what gives him the ability to be a rosterable player is he can be safety if Taylor Rapp gets hurt. He can play some of that dime look. Maybe Watts can do some of that stuff, and you can get rid of a Cam Lewis and get a guy that has a higher ceiling for the future and still keep him on the roster this year.
I say too, and then by the way, I like a lot the Farmer Caldwell combination of defensive tackle. Were that to happen, potentially you might have either a little trouble for DaQuan Jones or maybe Dwayne Carter. One of the
You can't move on from Carter though, right? There's
tough after just 1 year. DaQuan Jones would feel like if both those guys were impressive in camp, they'd have to both be impressive. But if they were both impressive, Farmer and Caldwell, that could spell trouble for DaQuan Jones.
Sure.
When it comes to roster cut down day. Look, you're never, and again, I love the Ravel pick because of primarily Tre White being there. I can feel good about Tre White if he's got to start the year, play the first month at corner or whatever it may be. Until you feel like Ravel's ready, I feel better about Tre White than I do about Dane Jackson. So that's why I love that pick. And I just think the ceiling for Ravel is just much higher than a lot of these other corners. That's what I like about that the most. And I like Kyle Williams too, for the reasons you explained. Any mock draft, you're never going to get everything you want. So I feel like what we did is punt. We had to punt somewhere, and basically we punted at edge. But again, you got Bosa, you got Epinesa, you got Hoyt once he's back. They're you got Groot, obviously the best guy.
Yeah.
In him. You know what I mean? So they're fine. And
I think improving that interior is going to make those edge guys better, right? In at least you'd like to think. And again, I think it works complementary, right? So if you improve cornerback to play, coverage is better. You have a split second more to get to the passer. So it all works together.
Yeah, and let's not put Javon Sullivan having a nice little leaping year too out of the realm of possibility as well. He definitely flashed and showed some things last year too. So anyway, this was fun, man. And this was the last mock draft, and I can't wait to see how things play out. Appreciate you, buddy. This was a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. We're gonna do this is not my last mock draft. I have two more to do. I'm doing one with One Pass members, which is our premium membership. I think tonight we're going to go live with the One Pass members and do exactly what we did here and just kind of talk it out and talk philosophy and allow those guys to interact with us and try to get a mock together with them. And then Greg and I, we're going late. Greg's been traveling a ton for work. So Wednesday night, we're going a little bit late. I think we're starting at 10 p.m. But we're going to do one where we do all three of the major mocks all at the same time. So we're going to run a PFF, we're going to run the one we just did, and a PFN.
Damn.
And we're going to go pick by pick and kind of just compare the boards, right? Like I think people give us a hard time about, he'll never be here, he'll never be there, and kind of see how they're different. And then also play different scenarios within three mocks. It's the mega mock, we're calling it. So we're going to go out hopefully on a high note. It might be too much. We might be pissed at the end of it, but we're going to have some fun with it.
I'm looking forward to seeing that. That sounds like a fun idea as well. Again, thank you very much, Aaron Quinn. Thank you all for watching and for listening. I'll be back one more show before the draft tomorrow morning. Talk to you guys then.